All right, so let's start with the Town of Fairfield Conservation Commission for January 18th at 7 o'clock. It's WebEx only, and I'll call to order. I see Peter Hood, Brian McCann, Dabney, Kate, and Ted, and myself are here. I'll have to appoint alternates of Kate and Ted. And number 3, Roman 3, approval of the draft minute, meeting minutes of December 21st, 2022. Anybody have any questions or corrections or comments regarding the minutes? No? Would anybody care to do a motion to approve?
Sure.
Move to approve. Dabney and Peter seconds. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now on to Roman 4, new business. Number 1, request from Steep Endurance to run a trail race at Lake Mohegan on April 22nd, 2023.
How's everybody doing? Nice to meet you all.
Hello.
Hello.
Who we have here?
So my name is Brian Vanderheiden. I'm the owner of Steep Endurance. We organize mostly trail race events in Connecticut and have done so for about the last 5 years, since 2017. We've hosted events in state parks, town parks, preserves, mainly in Northwest Connecticut. I'm based out of Bethel, so most of our events tend to be kind of in the Northwest corner, where there's usually a bigger selection of trail networks, and tougher trails for that matter. I was looking at our demographics as far as the number of participants for male and female for the last couple of years, and I noticed that it's 60% male, 40% female, and my thought was, how do I change that ratio? Why aren't more women running trail races? Is it because it's too dangerous because of the unpredictability of trails? Are they afraid of running alone in the woods because they're that they're not familiar with? And so I thought, why not put on a women's only trail race to kind of bring more awareness to this and bring more of them into the sport. Trail running's it's been a part of my life for probably the last 10 years. It's an amazing sport. The community, the experience, in my opinion, are like none other. Everybody's very welcoming, very inviting. Everybody kind of hangs out after the events. And so then I was like, okay, I've got to search for different trails, looking for some a little bit easier trails than we normally have races on. And we also don't really have a race, down in the southern part of Connecticut, down in Fairfield County. So as I said, I live in Bethel. I've run it at Lake Mohegan a few times, and I really love the kind of the variety of trails. And they're not too difficult, for the new trail runner, in my opinion. It kind of gives them a taste of what to expect on trails. Flat trails, but there's certainly some technical ones as well. And so that's what I'm proposing to you guys, is to try to put on an event there on Saturday, April 22nd. There would be 3 different events. There would be a 5K, a 10K, and then what's called a fixed time event, which is we do a 4-hour event. So basically, the runners would have 4 hours to do as many 5K loops as they could in that time frame. And so I'm just wondering I've talked to Tim and talked about the permit process, and I'm just wondering, what questions that you guys might have for me about the possibility of doing it.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Will there be water stations for the runners, or like a stop, like an organized stop-start area with a banner and tables and sign-up sheets and stuff like that?
Yes, there would be, and that was one of the questions that I had, is where I've been there a couple of times and trying to figure out where the possibility for that to exist, where the start finish would be. I looked at that field that's above the parking lot, and was wondering if that would be a possibility of doing that for like staging and the start finish up there before getting into the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's actually at the main entrance, there's actually a steep trail that is sort of behind the primary trailhead that goes up to the secondary trail, which is up above. So there's a
Yep.
steeper incline. Is that
Yep.
where you mean? Above that
Well, I'm
meadow?
talking like literally like, so if you go with the main trailhead right at the corner of the park,
Yeah.
like where the beach is, and you immediately turn to your right, there's that field up to the left.
Yes. Yeah. And so my only concern would be just trash management, making sure that you have receptacles for any trash, paper, empty cups, things like that, and that you have someone assigned that will, or a team that assigned that will clean up and take the garbage off site at the end of the event.
Absolutely. I bring in 3 trash receptacles for each of our events, and we carry everything out.
And what time of day would this be?
It would be in the morning, first thing in the morning. So like the first event, would probably start at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. My only concern is that there are a lot of people that go there to walk their dogs and use their trails, and how to mitigate any kind of interference between the runners and the dog walkers.
Tim and I were talking about that when we spoke and emailed that. He talked about, maybe putting a notice up the week before saying that there's going to be a trail race in there on, such and such date. The last time I was in there was a couple of weeks ago, and I did notice the exorbitant amount of dogs that were in there.
Yeah.
And I know it's also a park that's where they let them off leash as well.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of I'm kind of leaving that up to you guys, what you think the best process for that would be.
I mean, I will say this, I'm very, very familiar. It's not too far from my house with Lake Mohegan, and I used to go there regularly. And I will say that the upper trail on the, let's see, that's the eastern side of the park, is not very well traveled, or not as traveled, I should say. And so if you were to take that and then go through the Cascades area would probably be where the bottlenecking is, because there are not 2 trails there. But then the northernmost part of the park is not well traveled either. The part that goes up towards the Merritt and then along the Merritt and down the other side. So would it be possible for your race to start and stop at 2 different places, or does it have to start and stop at the same place?
It would probably start and stop at the same place.
Okay.
When I kind of mapped out a potential course, kind of a clockwise loop around the park.
Yeah.
Kind of back to that same spot. But
So
staying as much on the outer edge as I can.
Yeah, so in the western part, you have to come out onto the sidewalk for 1,000 feet or something, right? To get back to the parking lot. Yeah. Okay. That's it for my questions.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Well, I'm a little concerned about liability for the town itself. It's a Saturday. It's going to be a lot of competition for the open space. I'm wondering what sort of protection the applicant is trying to work into this.
Well, I always get liability insurance through either what's called the Roadrunners Club of America, or the USATF, which is the United States Association of Track and Field. And they, whatever amount of insurance that the town is requiring, whether it's a $1 million policy or $2 million, that's no problem on my end trying to obtain that, and then basically add you guys as an additional insured.
So who determines the amount?
You guys do.
Okay.
It's the minimum $1 million.
Have you done anything similar in other towns where it's public, there's other people around, whether it's dogs or anything like that?
Yep. So I hold a race. I've held a race for the last 2 years in the town of Brookfield. And we use the back of the high school as kind of our start finish, and then there are two different. Basically, the whole race is on town property. They have some trails. They have town park. Then they have an open space called Gursky Farm, which is all under the guise of the town. And you know, it's a pretty well traveled trails. Even at that time of year, we hold that race in early November, and we've had no problem with with putting on the event there.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry,
Roland,
in the Brookfield race, they have unleashed dogs on that trail also?
No, I think you have to have your dog on leash, as far as I know, because it is town property. I mean, some people don't, obviously, but yeah, I think their policy in the town park and the open space, you do have to have your dog.
Yeah, that's, Lake Mohegan is a magnet for people who want to have their dog off leash. So there's a lot of people at Lake Mohegan who aren't even from Fairfield. They come from New York,
That's right.
to use the facility. So broadcasting or promoting this thing and making people aware, there's only so much we can control. The folks coming from out of state, we can't.
Yep, and I would, and also I would make it clear to the runners in any sort of, pre-race email that I send out to them, or any pre-race meeting before the race, that look, there could be some off-leash dogs out there. Not, they're going to be close to their owner, and I'm sure on your end, you guys, are, you probably require people to at least they have to have control of their dog.
Right. So you've seen the trails.
I've seen the
Some
trail.
of them are pretty eroded, especially down by the river. I'd be
Yep.
concerned about people running, 2 or more abreast on some of the trails, just from a safety perspective.
No, I don't think. I mean, when people come into a trail race, they know kind of what to expect, and it'll be one of those things where I will publish what the route is, on the webpage for the event. And so if people want to certainly try to get familiar with the course, they can certainly do that.
I think it would also be helpful to post the route of the race and the specific times of each race in the material that you would post ahead of time, so that people know when and where the runners are going to be.
Kind of what trails to avoid then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And what time to avoid them, and when it's going to be busiest or whatever.
How many marshals do you think you would be able to get out there on race day?
It's like visualizing the course. I would probably have at least 2 or 3 marshals out there on the course.
Okay. If we were to ask you to have a few more, would you be able to swing that?
That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
One of the things that I want to do also with this race is that it's a women's only trail race, but I want only men volunteers for this.
Okay.
And I
Very
think
good.
that I would just note that at the Cascades, do you know where I'm referring to? Like where it's very along the.
Let me look at which part of the.
So it's called the Cascades. It's really in the center of the park. It's where
Okay.
there's a lot of rock formation. It's where a lot of people
Yep.
like to go swimming. It's where the swimming hole is, even though it's
Yep, I know
technically.
exactly where it is.
Swim there.
No swimming.
That area in particular would be a place to put a marshal.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. No, I because
Right
there's
by the bridge. By the
Yep.
bridge there, yeah.
where the wooden bridge is, where they go across.
First wooden bridge, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that is actually a spot where the runners would come in from the southern end of the park, cross the bridge, and then go to the left, and then basically make a clockwise loop, and
Okay,
then actually come back over the bridge. So I would certainly have a marshal.
okay, okay.
So I have to say, I think it's great use of, the facility of Mohegan. It's great, visibility for the site. I think that's awesome. My only concern is the liability, the dogs. Dog owners are as varied as their dogs are. It's how well they can control their animals. With a bunch of people running by, that gives me a little bit of concern.
Yeah, and for me, it's an issue of, there's always competition for the shared spaces, and this is an pretty much all day event.
Well, it
So
would be
I saw
8.
12 o'clock.
Yeah, basically 8 to 12.
Yeah. Well, I saw one starting at 12. Am I right?
No, it ends.
No, that's when the 4-hour would
okay.
finish. Right.
What's the more?
I at least I hope that, like, if this is going to go forward, the publicity starts way in advance, maybe with signage at the lake, so that out of town people who may come once in a while.
Yep.
I think it's important to be aware. I don't want any collisions or trouble.
Right, and that should be it. I would say that should be at both entrances to the park. Actually, there are 3 entrances to the park technically.
Absolutely.
So, and also we can have it posted on the lake. If you give us a picture, an image of the signage you're going to use, we can post it. There's a Lake Mohegan Lovers Facebook page that a lot of people use, and I can send that to those people to post it there as well.
Okay. Would you like me to, like, what size of sign are you looking for me to post, or do you want me to just kind of post something that's laminated at the trailhead? Or
I mean, there's a bulletin board at the main trailhead.
okay,
But I think it needs to be something that stands alone because people just don't look at the bulletin board.
Sure.
Right.
Maybe like a lawn sign type thing. At least with the details, or with the main information, but it has to be something that people are going to notice right at the trailhead. And there are 3 trailheads. There's the main trailhead. There's a trailhead along Morehouse Highway near the sort of just past the water park play area, and then
is that where the other parking lot is up there?
well, the other parking lot is at the end of Morehouse Highway.
Or okay,
So on your way to Morehouse, on your way to the other end, there's a small trailhead off the side there. There's no parking there, but some people that live in the neighborhood use that trailhead as well.
Oh, you'll see 4 or 5 cars there of people.
Yeah.
I can share my
Okay.
screen if you need a site map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can coordinate with Tim and try to, just get the exact location of those other.
And I'm sorry, are you coordinating this at all with the Park and Rec Department also?
Well, I reached out to them first, and then they referred me to Tim at the Conservation Commission because Lake Mohegan's under that guy.
So
Right.
it's
And they
not-
could-
Tim, do you know if the Parks and Rec has we went through this last time have we instituted like a special permit application process yet?
No, not yet.
No. I mean, it just seems to me like it just, the purview of the commission should just be, do we like this particular event? I mean, I know in other towns, they just have a very specific process for, a special permit for use of public property and for special events that require a specific bond amount, a certificate of insurance with mandatory minimum coverage, a police department sign off for traffic control and things like that. And I just worry. I think this is a fantastic idea, but I just worry that this sign off will, this process will be used to come back to us and say, for someone to say, this was your chance at requiring those things. Like you took a look at liability when you took a look at this application. And I think they're completely separate. I think you just have, a process for all those requirements that anybody would have to do, and then we look at the particular user. But that's just my 2 cents.
So Tony has a form like that, or at least they used to, for things like if you want to have an event at the Durrell Pavilion down at the beach, for instance. If you want to rent it out, there is a process and a form, a special permit for that, just like what you're talking about. Maybe we could talk to his office, even though their purview is only the beach area and the play area, and I think the parking lot. Maybe we could use their template to create something like that.
Absolutely.
My other thing was like they're talking about using the portable, like whether they're gonna be portable bathrooms or that they can use the bathrooms at Lake Mohegan. Like, I feel like I really don't know the regulations on any of that. Like,
That was
that's
another
part.
question I had too.
Yeah, like I think that's the Parks Department, like, and who would pay if they had to hire extra people to clean the bathrooms because of increased, you know, all of that. Like, I don't.
The facility is Parks and Rec, the beach area and the building there.
I noticed there's one porta potty at the corner
Right.
at the park.
Yeah, and the beach area is closed until Memorial Day, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, obviously that would be up to you guys whether we would be able to use the bathrooms there. And if not, then I would, get a couple extra porta potties.
Yeah, that would be easy permission from Parks and Rec to.
When you were
Got the
with
porta potties
the other
there.
race you mentioned, was it Brookfield? What town was it again?
Brookfield, yes.
Brookfield. Did they, was there any requirement that you hire any police officers to be there at the same time?
No, because because it was at the high school, there was plenty of parking. And the start finish was down below on the back, like one of the back soccer fields. Plenty of room down there. It's usually you have to have a police officer if it's a road race and it starts up on the road, but usually for trail races, unless there's a huge issue with people crossing the street for parking and whatnot, you usually don't have to do that with subs.
And now the information, the flyer also said an EMT. Would you have your own EMT that you'd be paying for, or who would be there for the medical part?
I would try to get the local town somebody to to be there for basically EMS standby.
Brian, I'm just curious, why Lake Mohegan? Why not Grace Richardson or Brett Woods or Hoydens Hill or another less traveled open space?
Well, one of the things that I look for when trying to find a location for an event is, does it have enough parking too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I looked at Lake Mohegan, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's quite a
Parking.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that way people aren't parking on the street. They're not
Right. Okay.
neighborhood. That was really that was one of the deciding factors when I
Okay.
tried to bring it.
My concern still comes back to the dogs.
Yes.
To have that many dog owners and those many dogs off leash, there's a lot of uncertainty there, and there's a lot of potential for someone getting bit. A lot of people running around, you get the dogs excited. Ideally, I'd love to be able to say, only dogs on leash that morning when you have the race. But I don't want to engender the ire of the dog community, because that's as bad as pitfall. But, ideally, that's the biggest concern I've got as far as volatility is concerned, having dogs off leash and a bunch of runners.
Well, I think like one of you said, that I think if we post the route of the course,
That's only $23,000.
There you go.
post, yeah, that might be a little over, but
Yeah, I could work with DPW or PD to get this here a week in advance and make it really obvious that something's scheduled for the week after.
but I think if we post when the date of the event is, we put a map of the course and say, these are the trails that we're going to be using. Please try your best to try to avoid these particular trails between such and such.
You know, Ted, I hear you about the dogs and all the people that use it. But you know, other people need to use it too. Not everybody is a dog person. Well, no, maybe we are, but I am. But that doesn't mean just because I'm a dog owner and I like to have my dog off leash, that one Saturday morning in April is going to be a large inconvenience for me. And I should be a responsible dog owner and share the space, I think, too.
I'll just add to that in years past, there has been a lot of tension with dog owners, feeling that it's really their space. So I concur with that 100%. People in this town need to realize that there are fishermen also that fish in the lake, and that's the dog owners don't like it, and they do need to understand that there are different constituencies that use the lake, and they should be given the opportunity to do that.
I agree with Dabney.
Anymore.
I agree with Dabney on that. It's like I said, there's a lot of competition for the shared spaces.
Right.
I just want to be sure that no one's really unhappy. Look, I can tell you from personal experience, when they have the road race at the beach, they take over. And I've been personally in a situation that was really uncomfortable, where the position is the beach is ours today. That's what I really would like to avoid.
Is that you're talking about when they've had the half marathon there?
Yeah, and I was down there once where, look, I'll tell you, they surrounded the car, the workers, the volunteers, and you're not going to move. So it's just a personal story, but it stuck with me a long time, and I really don't want to see that kind of thing happen at the lake. I'd like to see this be really a cooperative thing, but I do agree with what Dabney is talking about.
And that particular race, I mean, that's between 1,000 and 2,000 people for that.
Right.
This is going to be, most likely this will be 150 or less.
Well, again, I'm in favor of it as an activity if we can, secure, just security and make sure everyone's safe. I like the idea. I like using the lake for more than one thing.
Yeah.
It's super pretty there. I know that. So.
All right, commissioners, any other questions, comments?
And the Brookfield race was about the same number of people, about 100, 150. Is that what you're usually?
Yeah, that's kind of usually what most of my events are. Yeah, and that particular race, we had a 4-hour event, we had an 8-hour event, but then we also had a one loop, which was like a 4.
Give them each a pruning saw and let them take out some invasives at the same time. Good multi-use activity.
Ted, what was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said, give the racers some pruning shears and let them remove some invasives while they're running.
Well, I mean, I'm.
You could make that a condition.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I'm certainly not adverse to getting in there and doing a little bit of trail maintenance pre-race. One of the things that at some of my races, especially if there's tons of leaves on the course, I'll go through and I'll leaf blow some of the trails just to make it safer.
Well, that upper field is covered with mugwort probably around the time you're going to want to be there. So.
Yeah.
Each runner gets a sickle. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. If commissioners, if there were to be a motion to approve, I think before we do that, would you guys like to talk about conditions that you'd like to see in any possible motion that you guys might present?
I would like to see at least 6 marshals minimum.
Okay.
Is there any possibility to mandate that dogs are on leash during the event? Or is that?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that is possible because it's written into our, the use guidelines, the use regulations.
And just from personal experience doing Mill River, just small trails in town,
Right.
like if a dog owner comes and they, it's, you can ask them to make sure, to keep the, the kids away, the kids are out on the trails or whatever. I mean, and 99% of people are fantastic, but
Yep.
you can't,
There's the 1%.
someone's got to let their dog poop on the trail right in front. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Right. Well, I think maybe along with that, one of the things I'd like to see is early notice, early advertising.
Yep.
So that whether it's on a blog group or at the gates, just so that people know, not a week before, many weeks before.
Is there like a Facebook like
Yeah.
dog owner group in Fairfield?
There's not a Facebook dog owner group, but there's a Facebook page it's called Lake Mohegan Lovers. And it's all dog people. It's all dog people. And I think 2 weeks in advance would be good, because then if you only go on the weekends and you miss a Saturday, then chances are you're going to see it.
Okay,
There's
maybe
also
it'll be rainy.
Yeah.
There's also a contact group, Friends of Lake Mohegan, which is primarily
Right.
volunteers that we're trying to get to remove invasives, but that's another avenue. And then I'd like to promote it as well.
Excuse me.
An Instagram page for Pollinator Pathway. We've got a big pollinator garden right at the base of the dog route. If we promote it, that'll help manage what the activity is going to be that morning. People know enough in advance.
Yeah, just so the 1% who will object can choose to not be there that day.
Right, exactly.
The only condition I would stipulate, other than those that are mentioned, is just, again, trash maintenance, that there are trash receptacles that will clean it up.
And
you know.
the trail community is very good. Like if you go to a race and you see an aid station and people just throw cups and gels and stuff everywhere, we drill it into runners. It doesn't matter, what trail or it's at. We drill it into runners that everything is carry in, carry out. Don't leave stuff on the trail. The next time you're at the aid station, throw it in the trash receptacle, stick it in your pocket, and I would say 99.9% of people are just absolutely perfect with that policy.
Do you have any
You did
members
say
of
that there
your
will-
group who are from Fairfield?
What's that?
Do you have any members of your group who are from Fairfield?
I mean, I'd have to go back through my, through my list of, through my email list to see if there's runners in Fairfield. I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Just curious.
Well, Fairfield that have
make
run.
them a liaison or something.
At some of your other races, did you bring in or did you hire your own porta potties?
I've had to, yes. Yes.
Okay, so you're comfortable with that. If we were to say one of the conditions is you got to bring in whatever the appropriate amount of porta potties is for 150 people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Luke, do you want, I mean, I can make a motion to approve with the conditions that we've set forth, and also with the stipulation that,
Well, yeah, but I think we also need to get to the insurance level.
well, I was gonna say, and also we can talk to Tony and see if we can either use his special permit paperwork or model one after his.
So make a motion to approve in principle, pending final details, and list those out, or is that too complex?
I with Commissioner McCann, I think this might be premature. I want to maybe say something that this is a one-off for this race for now, but I
Yeah, why don't we put it as a separate agenda item that we could recommend looking into that for moving forward?
right,
Right.
because I don't want this to be like Commissioner McCain said. It's a precedent that anybody else can come like this. I think it's appropriate to find the proper application. Maybe we reach out and to the police department. Maybe do they want to have a say? Do they have to? Does an applicant have to go down to Parks and Recs first. So yes, Tim.
DECD, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Hear me clear? Okay. DECD has the best one that I've seen. It gets circulated through all the major departments for signatures. And it's a simple description of the process and everyone signs off on it. It's the best form that I've seen.
Is that for like
I
things like
think
the
it would be a
Memorial Day
good fit.
parade?
Mostly for the times that it comes to my desk is for production when the
Ah, yeah.
production companies are doing movies. Everyone gets a swing at it and comments and touches it. So if that's something, I could have one tomorrow and circulate it. But it's pretty basic, and I think would cover us. As far as the insurance, you want me to check with risk management is now handled by HR. I could ask, what level of insurance
Well, no,
they would
I
recommend.
would want $2 million because of the dogs. So I don't think that's an issue. I've dealt with, in getting insurance and adding all of us adding the town as an additional insured shouldn't be an issue at the $2 million level. I don't do much dog bite litigation, but I can't see more than $2 million in damage. But you never know. But I think that's an appropriate amount. You don't have to waste your time on that. I wouldn't have been comfortable with a $1 million, but $2 million I think is okay. And I think that's doable, Brian, right? You were able to.
Yeah, that's no problem on mine.
Okay, all right. So we don't want to make it too onerous. Is that, Tim, with that application or that permit thing, is it enough time now for Brian to, if we were to make that a condition for him to swing around to all the departments? Is it something he can do and get his race done in April, or?
Yes, it's usually done in a day.
Oh, okay.
Circulates, everyone comments via email or signs it, but it's usually by email.
Okay.
Process in place.
Well, then I think that would, yeah, Dabney, I think that's good. I think that should be part of a further condition. And maybe this is the beginnings of a new process for events like this, and that would be great.
I absolutely think that we should have a process, a formal process for this type of thing.
Should we have a motion that Tim move forward on generating the form and we begin the process?
We can do that after. I think let's deal with just this particular request right now. But I think all of these conditions should be in a motion. If somebody were to, bring a motion forth, second it, then we talk about it and vote on it, and then Ted, we can bring up as a commission itself. You can bring up the item. We should formalize this process somehow. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody like to bring a motion forward?
I'll make the motion to approve this request with the conditions set forward in our discussion, which include trash, potential police, bathrooms, liability insurance, etc., stipulated by a form that will be passed through all the departments for a special permission to use the open space for this race.
Okay. In addition to the police, the EMT people too, right? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay. So anybody would like to second that?
Second.
Ted? Okay. All in favor? I think that's unanimous. All right there, Brian. I think you're able to do it, but you're going to have to coordinate with Tim in our in the office there to get a couple of more things done for you. Okay.
Absolutely. I appreciate everybody's time tonight, and I'm super excited about it.
It looks like you're going to be our guinea pig here a little bit, so hopefully it goes well. One final thing, it wasn't part of anything, but it said in your little pamphlet that the event is some of the funds will go to a charitable events, or how would you?
Yeah, yep. I'm gonna try to donate a portion of the proceeds to, some sort of hopefully local entity and
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Good luck to you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be talking to you, Tim. Thank you.
All right, now we're going on to new business number 2, briefing the United Illuminating 115 kV line replacement project. Tim, is that just going to be from you, or is somebody going to? Okay, go ahead.
Yep, just me. Everyone received my memo dated January 12th. I thought it was just easier to put in writing, kind of high level view of the project as I understand it after a few meetings with UI representatives. This probably started initially last summer with the administration, me, and some of the other departments involved in the early stages. So they had been making changes, and as it evolves on their end, it kind of they involve us to evolve it with them. So my 2 areas of concern to bring to your attention both involve conservation easements, one on private property. Well, I guess they're both on private property. A small triangle of land near the West-East storage on Kings Highway, and the Metro Center at Ash Boulevard. Coincidentally, that's right in the area of the sewer line replacement that this commission and the agency, recently approved and permitted. So knowing now, you know the 2 areas, encroachment by UI as part of the tower replacement project. They're replacing all the lattice towers, mostly in the railroad corridor. Some instances with that outside of that, slightly outside that. It's not before the siting council yet, but again, as their plans evolve, I wanted to bring it to the commission's attention. Like I said, they are replacing the current. There's smaller towers on the railroad's catenary towers that hold the electrical supply to the trains. Those are going to be removed, and they're going to be replaced with these giant monopoles similar to the Eversource project that we recently heard about or have dealt with. So with the new towers, the old towers and some lattice towers, such as the ones in the Metro Center property, are going to come down. But with that, there's a vegetation management portion of their project and construction process, as well as timber matting for access of cranes and other equipment to install the concrete footings at the base of the monopole, and obviously the cranes to erect the poles and string the wire. So again, the 2 areas involve both of those activities in conservation easement areas. I've walked both of them before I wrote the memo. The one next to Westy, I don't see a ton of impacts based on what they're proposing thus far. There are some mature trees, some invasives, which they're removing invasives helps us a little bit. And then similar to some invasive, mostly Phragmites on the Ash Creek parcel. So I made a few recommendations. I could also share my screen with the maps if that's helpful. But that was basically it. Kind of my understanding, it's a siting council issue. I think if we bring up some of our concerns and what we recommend as far as replanting, I would be hopeful that the council would listen, since it is they are regulated areas. Both have wetland regulated areas, as well as the conservation easements. I think that's as far as I can understand, that's about as much as we could do is just try and work with the siting council, and UI seems agreeable at these two locations to work with us. I don't think there's a way to fight it based on the utility, what their rights are to. I guess they could almost do what they want. Yeah, that's kind of my summary.
Why don't you try to ask for more and be happy if we get a little less? So whatever you were thinking of asking, ask for more. Ask for them to do more and see what'll come of it. I mean, we were kind of nice to them with the other with UI and last year's vote. So with that on North Street, at the end of North Street in there. So if we have no say in it, ask for whatever you think we can get.
Yeah, and that was Eversource through Brett Woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, I mean, they do have requirements from what I've learned, as far as how close trees and vegetation could be to the wires based on if there was a certain speed wind, how far they could swing. So that's the reason for part of their clearing in addition to the actual construction. But I think from what I discussed with UI's council and
I'm sorry.
And
that was Eversource. You're right. I apologize. I thought it was the same company.
no problem. So they could essentially replant with specific vegetation that wouldn't interfere with that swing distance of the wires, and so that there is some room, I think, that we could work together. They do some temporary disturbance, get their thing done, remove some invasives in the process, as some a side effect, and we can get the areas replanted.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, was asking for, there are particular plantings that you'd like to see there that would be beneficial. Absolutely ask. It's really no skin off their back to do that. So.
Well, I was also going to say, Tim, I know forestry is concerned about this because of the girth of some of the trees that they might need to take down for the construction of the new cranes. And if we're replacing vegetation, if you take down an 80-year-old tree and you plant a sapling, it's going to be 80 years before we see the same benefit from a carbon sequestration perspective. So if there's some way of matching girth, they plant 5 trees for each one they take down that has equivalent size impact from an air purification perspective. I'd love to see something like that. Not sure we can do it, but
yeah, if you go to the Metro Center area at the Kennard Street, I don't see that there's no trees there anyway. Most of that's vegetation and shrubs, willows and phragmites, really.
okay.
At the Westies storage location, the biggest tree I saw was maybe 8-inch at DBH. We're natives. I didn't see any invasive trees, no Atlantis, surprisingly. And they were set back quite a ways from the existing wires. So I estimated, just off the top of my head, there might be 6 to 8 trees gone there. Again, as an estimate, but yeah, I mean, there's room to replant some trees further out, and again, some lower shrubs that would provide habitat and food for birds and
shade. Yeah.
Other critters that would still grow low.
Great, perfect.
Thanks as always, Tim, for keeping us abreast of what's
No
going
problem.
on.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Any other questions, commissioners?
Tim, do you think that the long-term impact is going to be less when they take the lattice structures down and put these monopoles up? Is it going to be less impactful because it's going to have a smaller footprint, or is it going to be about the same?
I think the temporary impact, you know, you could see in some of my notes in the memo, you know, we're talking that they wouldn't even start this the soonest part of the project till 2025 and go into 2027. You know, I think the disturbance similar to the Eversource and Brett Woods project, that, you know, they're basically the same poles. So you got that huge footing to drill, then erect the pole, then string the lines and take down the old ones. Most of it, other than these two locations, it's all in the railroad, you know, in the railroad stone already. So there's really no impact per se. I think the train does more damage in anything else. But through these locations, I think the lattice towers have 4 footings. I don't know if you added up all the square footage of the footings, you know, would it combine to be more or less than the 8-foot footing of the monopole? Maybe it's probably negligible. But you know, they're at least in the Ash Creek area, they're taking down 2 lattice towers and replacing them with 4 monopoles. So, you know, there's probably more of a disturbance there. But also, if you notice, the vegetation removal is significantly less in Ash Creek than there was at Westy. But also, contrary, the matting disturbance from the timber mats is also significantly higher at Ash Creek than it is at Westy. It's just a bigger space, and they're going tower to tower before they jump Ash Creek into Bridgeport, because that substation is right over on the other side of the river. So that's where they're going to. It is a little off center, which I also pointed out in the memo, that the new locations of the 4 new poles in that section do change the angle a little bit of the current wire locations. So their easement does move a little bit, which to me, they're in the air. The easement could be here, it could be there. It doesn't impact the ground. But that's just something to note too, that'll change slightly. I did mention to them they need to coordinate start times with engineering and other town subs for, you know, so they're not trying to set up mats and cranes if they're digging for the sewer line. That'll just be a disaster. So they are aware of that, and that's on them for now. So yeah, my recommendation is to write a letter and try and work that out with council. Does the commission want me to submit a draft to you for review
Yes, please.
in advance of sending it to siting council?
I would prefer that.
Okay. Right, noted. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners, on that? Nope. All right, we'll move on to 5, old business. Number 1, election of officers. It's I guess a new term, new year, so we will need new officers. It could be the same, could be somebody else, whatever.
I would like to nominate our current slate. We can't do better. I don't think we can't do better. All three of you, we just can't.
I'm okay with that. Dabney, are you okay with that? Rick isn't here. I did send him a text or an email.
Well, I'm drafting him.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think we know Rick well enough. I think he would be fine with that too.
I think so too.
In the event he isn't, we might just have to do one election later for that. But Okay, so is that by way of a motion, I guess?
It is. Can we do
Yeah.
3 at 1? I'm happy to do 3 as
all
one.
3 at once? Sure. Uh, Anybody wants to second that?
I second.
Ted? Okay. All in favor, I guess? Yeah, okay. Congratulations, everybody, again.
Thank you both, and
you for all
thank you, Rick,
serving.
as well.
All right, we move on to bills and communications. Is there anything there, Tim? No?
None.
No legal?
Wow.
Okay. How about staff reports?
None for
Reports
conservation.
from the Conservation Department.
My only report is, as most of you know, the department will be moving its office as of Friday from the second floor to the first floor. So if you're looking for us, probably starting Monday, we will be down there full time.
That's exciting.
Has Joanne made peace with that?
Um,
Sorry.
She's working on it. We're working on it.
All
That's
right.
all I have for staff reports.
Are there any site walks for us?
No sidewalk scheduled.
All right, well, that's it, folks. I think we all want to go now, so I'm not going to ask for a motion to adjourn. I think we're just done. Everybody have a good night.
All right.
Thanks so much,
very
Luke.
Take
Bye.
care all. Thank you.